In honor of the Ides of March, what was a time you were stabbed in the back by your closest friends? Reading the first 10 answers made me realize I have good friends. Thanks Soapy. This is just painful to read, dude. Were you in high school when you passed your best friend? Do you know why they did this to you? Why didn't you beat his ass up? I invited all my high school friends to my birthday party and none of them showed up. Luckily I had my 2 close friends from outside of school show up and still have a good time. Went back to school that Monday and instead of sitting at their table I took a chance and sat with this girl I had a crush on. We dated throughout high school and then some, so it worked out. Reading the first 10 posts made me realize I had pretty typical shitty friends through high school. But still. Thanks, OP. Was friends with a guy since middle school. We were inseparable. I helped him with his depression. Got him to move out of his parents' house. Supported him when he was emotionally wrecked, etc. But the moment I lost my job and became depressed, he wasn't there for me. Stopped talking to me, hanging out with me, answering my messages. Asked him why he was ignoring me and he said I was being too sad. If dude had depression issues then this is plausible. It's shitty but plausible. 2 depressed people are much worse than just one. At my university it's very small. We have the same group of people who we work on projects with for the entire semester. I had done about 60% of the work for every project we did thus far. And then I had to have emergency surgery during a final, major project. I did as much work as I could leading up to the date of the surgery and then handed the reins over to them as I would be in surgery and in recovery through the time of presentation. I know. Stupid decision. I go through surgery, recover, come back and get called into the dean's office. They took my name off of every project and claimed I did no work, fabricating evidence that I would not respond to their messages. I was blindsided, and had only my word to defend myself. I ended up having to complete 5 semester-long projects in 1 week to graduate. I did it. Graduated. Barely. And at the graduation party they didn't even have the courage to face me. They asked a friend of mine how it was possible that I graduated. Luckily my friend told them to ask me themselves. They never did. This was recent and I don't really trust any teammates much anymore, as I had issues with relying on strangers before this incident anyways. I'm trying to get past it. Edit. Fixed typo. Holy shit, my blood's boiling from just reading this. I can't imagine what I would have done in your position. To be honest, I was very angry about it, and very hurt, but I had so much to do with just picking up the pieces that I couldn't even focus on them. After the graduation, what I really took from the situation is learning that I never want to make anyone feel the way I felt when they hurt me. I've been more open and more strict about honoring commitments and making sure people I care about can count on me when they are helpless. It would be nice to see where this attitude gets them in a few years, but I think it's best to try and cast them away from my thoughts. My best friend, my fiance, we were together 6 years, lived together most of it, lived apart for the last because we went to school in cities 2 hours apart. We had an argument the day after Thanksgiving, so I made a surprise drive to visit her that night. Caught her red-handed cheating on me. She swore up and down it was a misunderstanding, and since I loved her, I believed every word. We spoke briefly for the next month because of finals, but afterwards she invited me over. I drove 2 hours to see her, and when I get there the cops show up minutes later and hand me a restraining order. I found out, months later, why she did. She didn't want me to find out she was already getting married to the guy she was cheating on me with. Fucked me up for years. Caught her red-handed cheating on me. She swore up and down it was a misunderstanding, and since I loved her, I believed every word. Love makes people believe and do crazy stuff. Hope you are better these days. You know, it's funny, when you look at someone through rose-colored glasses, all the red flags just look like flags. What happened to us? Same thing that always happens. You didn't know me, then you fell in love with me, and now you know me. And I get there, the cops show up minutes later and hand me a restraining order. How is that possible? Can someone just go and get a restraining order without having to prove some kind of potential harm? Based on past behavior. I met someone and she opened my eyes. Said my husband 3 weeks after our son was born. I'm still bleeding from that stab wound. She opened my eyes sounds a lot like she opened her thighs. What a douche. Living with 5 very close friends in a 2BR apartment. Leases in 2 of their names. They're a couple. The rest of us pay them rent. They pay the landlord. Dude of the couple is a slob. Gets worse once he actually finds a steady job driving a forklift in a plant. He gets some money, buys a TV and PlayStation, ends up skipping work and staying at home to play video games. She doesn't like this turn. They break up. She leaves. Close friend since high school is sad, but he's got a gaming addiction to help him cope. Little did we know. After he lost his job on week number 2, no call no shows for NW3 coming out apparently don't fly in automotive plants. He just stole our rent money for 3 months. Disappeared in the night after robbing our rooms. Week later we get a letter from the landlord. This is your 3rd and final notice. You have 7 days to vacate. So, the rest of us all go our own ways. I find a new apartment and everything ends up okay. Turns out he robbed us, then pawned the car that his dad had given him to help him get back on his feet. Went to the casino, blew all of it, and had his aunt pick him up. Happened like 10 years ago, but he's still the one person in the world who I would up and punch him if I saw him walking down the street. Everyone has tried to help this guy, through money or time or goods. He's always almost gonna get out of the hole he's dug himself, and then he shits all over it. Fuck you, Jamie. Edit. It has been brought to my attention that MW3 hasn't been out for 10 years. Please excuse a non-gamer for not knowing the difference between COD, COD2, COD3, COD4 megawatts, COD War, MW2, CODBO, MW3, CODBO 2, CODG, CODOR, CODBO 3, CODI. I also rounded from 8 to 10 on how long ago it was. Using the corrected information and a Google search, it was MW2, and the 9th of November sounds like the right time of year. But still, fuck the Jamies of this world. Never heard of someone who combined casino gaming and video gaming addiction into a single illness. Wasn't nearly as bad as this, but I rented a place with 3 friends while going to university only to have 2 of them bail on us, leaving us on the hook with a 9-month lease at the start of spring semester. I feel for ya. Edit. Yes, I play video games. No, I haven't played CS. Go. Don't really get sucked into collectibles or Skinner box gameplay, but I can see how they could be addictive in the same way as gambling. Is it bad etiquette to ask the roommate who is handling the lease to actually forward you a copy of the receipt every month to confirm that the money you're giving them is actually paying the rent? This whole I was giving him the money but he didn't pay the rent story comes up so often that I think it's reasonable to ask for proof. So, several years ago my grandmother died. Driving home from her house, she lived very close to us. We ran into one of my best friends driving the other way. He had known her and had eaten Sunday dinner at her place on several occasions. So we stopped to let him know that she had passed and where the funeral would be. While we were at her funeral, he and a couple of other guys broke into our apartment and stole all of our shit. Then, a couple of nights later, they tried to break into her apartment too, but a neighbor saw them and scared them off. This guy had been near the top of my best friends list and we'd known each other for about 12 years. I was 18 at the time. Edit. Since people keep asking. No, he wasn't a drug addict at the time. He may have gotten into drugs later. Not sure. Haven't spoken to him since. But he only smoked weed at the time. This is why you always have a friend of the family house sit during a funeral. Obituaries are perfect indication someone won't be home. This is one of the most fucked up things I've read from this thread. That's low. A couple of years ago I got really sick and moved back to my parents' house for a couple months. My roommate asked me if some friends of ours, his very long time friends, could stay in my room for a few days because they were temporarily homeless. They had like 4 kids and the kids had to stay somewhere else. It was Christmas time and these people were pretty poor and weren't going to be able to afford presents for the kids. My parents were actually going to give them a couple $100 to help with presents. I came back to the house a week or 2 after they came and stayed, only to discover they had stolen my MacBook, another laptop, a Kindle, a set of gaming headphones, and my external hard drive, like 15 years worth of pictures stored on there. They also stole my roommate's college ring. I'm still mad and it's going on 3 years later. You don't steal from friends, especially ones who are saving your homeless necks. If it makes you feel better when I get my own place, I won't let this lesson be in vain. Dude, get ready to feel like the fun governor. I live with my girlfriend and another friend I've known forever. Problem is that the roomie has all the world development of a teenager. Girlfriend used to be similar early on in the relationship, but she has a good head on her shoulders now when she wants to use it. Anyhow, the amount of times I've had to be the guy to shoot down plans or ideas, or bar people from entering our home, or put the kibosh on things that even seem fun to me at the time, is insane. You regularly have to start looking out for you and yours, and it is going to suck for the first couple years. People are going to get upset and not understand at first, but they catch on and see you have a reason for it if they stick around. My ex cheated on me with my bass player, 2 very close friends, and most likely a few others. On the flip side, this means that all of the people she cheated with also betrayed me. Edit. Thanks for all the laughs guys. Fuck you both. L&R. I had a great friend that I knew since 4th grade. When we both got out of the military we decided to get an apartment and were roommates for about 8 months. I was working 2 jobs, so I was not around a lot. One day our apartment manager caught me in the hallway and asked me if I had the rent. At the time I was giving my roommate the rent and he said he was paying it. Turns out he had not paid the previous 2 months and had pocketed my cash. I ended up paying for 4 months of rent for both of us, got evicted, and lost my security deposit. Edit. You people are funny. Sorry about assuming your species. I was only 22 at the time and a little naive about things. We're alive if you sign a lease, both parties are 100% responsible for the rent. It's a college town, you cannot rent without that in your lease. I paid him cash because I didn't have a checking account. I had a spending problem and not having a credit card or checkbook stopped me from getting into debt. It worked but was hugely inconvenient. I was also working 2 jobs, so I did not have a lot of free time during the day. I was home late at night or Sundays. I didn't worry about my bro ripping me off. We were good friends. I was a devil dog. He was a devil dolphin. We had each other's backs. Lesson learned. Thanks for the gold. Wow. What a piece of shit. If you ever see him again, tell him from me that he is a big twat. Damn. That's quite close to what my roommate did. We met as co-workers, got along well enough, and decided to split on a nearby apartment. Things were going just great. We had a system where we simply split the rent in half, and each of us respectively paid our half of the rent. After a year or so, he quit that job, and got another one nearby. No problem. A while later I find out he's out of that job and on the market again. In the meantime, he's borrowed a few bucks here, a couple there, and that slowly added up. He owed me around $1,000, I think. Finally, I'm walking through the building and one of the staff asks me what's going on. I'm confused, and he explained that we're about $1,500 behind on the rent. 1.5 months worth. It was so close to the wire that we were going to be kicked out the next day. By some miracle, I actually had enough to cover that. But now he owed me a lot more money and I was goddamned pissed off. It went on for a while. He told me he would contact his mother, and she would be able to help him out. I made the mistake of taking his word on that. But after a couple of weeks of nothing, I decided to contact her myself. Lo and behold, he had not mentioned this to her, so I apologetically explained the situation to her. Then she spoke to him. Fortunately, everything turned out well. For me anyway. His mother paid me everything he owed me, plus enough to cover his next couple of months' rent. He found a job that he liked, and from that point, I paid the rent, and he paid me his portion, always on time. Wound up losing contact after we each moved on in life, but stayed on good terms, so I guess it all came out well in the end. Damn. My boyfriend's brother didn't pay me back $25 he borrowed, and he's not gonna borrow anything from me ever again. You have lots of patience to let someone borrow so much. I guess it is different because I'm not friends with his brother though. I never lend anyone money that I won't need to get back. If they do end up paying me back, that's awesome, but it's not worth losing a friendship over. I've never actually borrowed more than like $10 from friends because I think that's an unfair thing to ask, but I do understand people have their reason for it. I've just been lucky enough to not need to. Edit. I'm not saying it's not a dick move to not pay someone back. It definitely is. I just am prepared to lose my cash if I lend it. My best friend in college just stopped talking to me one day. Wouldn't respond to any texts or anything. It hurt, but I let it go. A year or so later I read in the paper that an old friend of ours had died, so I texted her to let her know. She responded with, "You have the wrong number." Maybe that was the truth, but I couldn't help but think that it wasn't, and for some reason this hurt more than her breaking things off with me. Years later she apologized out of the blue on Facebook, which is nice I guess. But who the fuck does that? Dated a girl all through high school, but when school ended we started drifting apart because real life was coming at us fast, and it's just the way things were. We didn't officially break up, but we became a lot less close than we had been. Then one night my phone rings at like 2:30 AM and it's my best friend calling. I figure he needs a ride home from a party or something, so I answer to see what's up, and it's her. Well, it was him calling, but I hear her in the background laughing, at which point he starts laughing too. I'm thoroughly confused and pretty much start yelling into the phone, "What the fuck? What the fuck is going on?" And then I hear the unmistakable sound of naked skin slapping naked skin with her moaning like crazy. Yeah, she cheated on me with my best friend and called me in the middle of the sex as a joke so I could hear them going at it via speakerphone. Relationship instantly over. Friendship instantly over. That was 16 years ago. Haven't spoken a word to either of them since, and the few times I've seen him, I believe she moved away. Thank God. I just breeze right past him as if he doesn't exist. I've had trust problems with people ever since that night though. It would be one thing to have a relationship end, or a friendship fall apart, but to have both of them, the two people I trusted most, that had been by my side for years, do that to me. Done. Edit. To clear up some confusion. This was back in 2001, so butt dialing wasn't as common because everyone had like flip phones then, so you couldn't accidentally hit any numbers because if the phone was in your pocket then there was no chance of you hitting the keypad. As for it being a joke, or they were faking it, who knows? I never bothered to find out. And when it's 2:30 AM and you're only hearing things via a phone, you make your own conclusions. I do know that we never spoke again after that, so I kind of figured, had it been a joke, one of the two of them would have spoken up at some point and been like, hey man, fun a joke we pulled the other night, or something, but that never happened. I just got treated to what I described above and then it was instant end of relationship and friendship. Man, this hurts me, I'm so sorry, though in my opinion you're better off now. Actually, it's a kinda fucked up power play move. The way you both drifted apart. She may have felt hurt or got the feeling of not being wanted anymore, or maybe she wanted to convince herself she still has it, and at that point she probably needed some closure, that is, to reassure herself that it was not due to her you both drifted apart but you. Shift the blame. It was never a joke. God, kids these days use that term for anything. Slap someone and it was a joke. Bully someone and ridicule them, and when they retaliate, they are told that they can't handle a joke. It was a surefire way of her to put you down to please her own sadistic ego. Plain and simple. For her to feel in power again, even for a tiny moment, over you, knowing that in a fucked up way you lost her and she has been taken. For you to feel and be hurt, depressed on the other end of the line, while here they were doing it, on top of all this, with your own friend. She wanted to hurt you. I'd say good riddance to both of them. There are much better people out there, 7 billion people on this planet. You still have your whole life left. Cheer up. Choose wisely next time. I've told this story before, but it still makes me roll my eyes. Had a friend of 10 plus years. Let's call him Matt. Matt and I were about as close as two dudes who are comfortable in their heterosexuality could be. We had each other's backs, were each other's wingmen, cleaned each other up when we'd partied too hard, etc. One day, while at work, I'd get an email from Matt out of the blue saying it's time to end our friendship, that we've grown apart, that we're moving in different directions, and that he's upset that I didn't go to his cousin's dad's funeral. I had been in a band with the cousin, and we weren't friends anymore. But that's another story. I was like, WTF man? Why are you doing this? We had just been hanging out like 2 days before, and he had given no indication he was unhappy with me, nor had he addressed any issues. He wouldn't say any more, and straight ghosted me. None of my friends would give me any more information. Either they didn't know or they weren't saying. A month or so later, I moved out of the apartment I'd been living in and in with my 88-year-old grown mother, who had just lost her husband of 50 or so years and was having a rough time. I moved on with my life. Maybe 5 years later, people started being okay with inviting Matt and his fiancée to stuff that I was invited to as well. We had a ton of the same friends, and it had been awkward for everyone. That evening, I ended up on the porch smoking a cigarette after several beers, and Matt was doing the same. Long story short, he confirmed the story that he had ditched me as a friend because of a girl. I dated a woman, let's call her Ed, Red was a feisty woman and a real pistol when you met her. When you dated her, she was kind of a crabby bitch and always right. I liked her, and she was very attractive, but I decided I couldn't handle the crazy, and broke up with her cleanly, which she did not take kindly to, and spread all sorts of interesting lies about me, but whatever. After a period of days had passed after I split up with her, he asked her out on the down low. She said no friend of you Burphasers will ever date me, so that led to the email breakup. He went back to her and said okay, we're not friends anymore. Now can we date? She said no, you're too fat. I am not into guys as heavy as you. Over the course of the next 18 months he proceeded to lose 100 pounds. He then went back and said okay, what about now? She was like yeah, okay. Apparently they went on 1 or 2 dates, but she ghosted him, then moved to another state. We're still not friends. I've since learned that he's pretty much like that with everyone. Friends till he decides otherwise. In July of 2015 at 25 years old I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. A softball-sized tumor on my pancreas. At the end of the month I had a distal pancreatectomy and splenectomy, and was opened from one side of my abdomen to the other. I lived with a group of friends, including an army buddy who I'd been close friends with for a few years, and who I'd helped find employment in town when he moved up. Part of my recovery involved my partner caretaker making many small meals for me, as well as my friends chipping in to help keep the house clean and sanitary. My army buddy, however, continued with his status quo of meal prepping for maximum gains once a week, and not cleaning up his mess until 2 or 3 days later, essentially holding 3/4 of the kitchen hostage. After a few weeks tension was rising as our other roommates who had full-time jobs, my buddy was a bartender, continued to do their part, and also clean up after him while asking, and then telling him to police his own shit at least if he wasn't going to help me recover. 2 weeks later my next closest roommate left on a trip for Europe. He was kinda the alpha dog of the house, and my buddy announced that he needed to break the lease and move out because he was being treated poorly. It's worth mentioning that he, and another roommate who left shortly thereafter, had verbally fought with myself and Alpha Dog to sign this lease, at points alternately yelling and begging us to stay on with them. The latent resentment and frustration I hold for those individuals is something I had to focus on reducing for months as I went through chemotherapy and radiation treatments, eventually forcing my stage IV cancer into remission. To this day my buddy is oblivious to the typical outcomes of stage IV pancreatic cancer. I did not have stage IV pancreatic, but I did have stage IIB Hodgkin's lymphoma, and had similar issues with roommates once I had finished chemo, like, I need to have a space heater in my room on because you keep the house at 17°C and that's not okay for someone who has lost a lot of weight and has a compromised immune system. And sure, I have fewer classes to get to because I'm in recovery mode, but it's totally fine for you guys to use the kitchen and never clean it and leave it for me, because I have the time. Roommates can be challenging in the best of times, and I'm glad your shitty roommate moved out, eventually. Also, congrats on not being typical. My roommate tried to convince my girlfriend that I was secretly a rapist and a pedophile, got his girlfriend and some others and held an intervention where she couldn't leave until she said she was going to do something about me. Luckily, my girlfriend decided to talk to me, realized it was all bullshit, and is still by my side today. My roommate dropped out of college and still hasn't finished their degree. I was in a band with some friends in high school. I wrote all the songs we played, They kicked me out and said they didn't like my music anymore and wanted to go another direction. I later found out they had booked a show and played my songs they said they hated. I felt pretty crummy after hearing that. They were totally different songs. You see, yours were like ding 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 da da ding ding. But theirs were like da ding 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 da da ding ding. Completely different songs. Feel good about yourself. They couldn't do what you did. Sounds like they needed you more than you needed them. Fuck yeah. That just means they're incapable of writing their own songs and that you will be more successful than them. And I bet if you looked hard enough you could replace them all with more talented musicians and be much better than you ever were with them. That's basically what happened. But that was high school, which was about 15 years ago for me. My friend of nearly 25 years happily ended our friendship over a few $1,000 he owed me. Hey Bill, if you are reading this, go sit on an AIDS needle. Went through a divorce. Took me 2 years to recover and start dating again. Don't know what changed in me, but I became associated with an incredibly shitty group of humans I considered my close friends. The following are true. Over the span of about 3 years, and each was with a different friend. Met a girl who worked at GNC. Started dating. Would find out later one of my friends started going into that GNC daily telling her to break up with me and date him. Broke up with her for not telling me it was happening for about 3 months. And stopped talking to him completely because he knew how difficult it was for me to try and move on from my ex-wife. Brought a friend to a family cookout that basically turned into a block party. Friend banged my mom. Don't really want to go into detail on this one. After breaking up with GNC I met a new girl. Was at my house playing Call of Duty with a friend and invited her to come over and hang out with us. The two of them started dating the next day. Wasn't actually too mad about this. I wasn't dating this one, it was just someone I was talking to. Started dating another new girl. Introduced her to my circle. A few days later she would tell me she got a FB message from one of them asking if she wanted to come over to his house, followed up with a dick pic. Another new girl I met. The usual drill. Started dating. Hung out. Introduced her to my friends. Which at this point was basically just 2 people. Couple weeks later she texts me, hey, come out to the bar, your friend Dave is here. Not a coincidence. He later confessed he saw her check in on FB and just went to hang out cause she seemed cool. He tried to play it off like it was innocent, but in what universe is it cool to go hang out with your buddy's girlfriend that you just met without telling your buddy? He knew I wasn't there. I now have one friend. And he's gay. Almost zero chance he'll try to bang my girlfriends, but I may have to come back eventually and edit that he banged my dad. I had a friend bang my mom too. After we were all out at the bar together. We knew he drove her home, but we didn't know for sure anything happened until he walked in my buddy's house the next day where our group of friends was hanging out. He sat down with a huge smile on his face but didn't say anything. Just listened to the group chit chat until my buddy Rob said, "What's up Cliff?" and he couldn't wait to say I fucked her mom. Cue ear to ear grin and many laughs. They were both adults and she had a great time too, so I didn't care. But he was so proud of himself. I'll never forget that grin. A group of my friends from high school had talked for a long while about going to Japan. Around age 24 or so, all of us finally had jobs and money. So 3 of us finalized the plans. Then another friend joined in. And then yet another. Just before we booked the flights, one of them called me up and said, "The 4 of us don't want you to come on this trip. We have different interests." The others can't even bring themselves to call you and tell you. But I figure this way is better. I talked to some of my new colleagues about how awesome it would be to go to Japan and ended up going with them on the original dates that were planned. A great trip. 2 of my high school friends, the only one I have any contact with, and the only one who kept any of my respect, is the one who called me and fessed up. Edit. RIP my inbox etc. My HS friends wanted to do a lot of video game type stuff. Hang out in arcades in Akihabara, that kind of thing. I wanted to check out the fashion district in Shibuya and buy some Japanese jeans, for example. Iron Heart, Sugar Cane, maybe a Buzz Rickson flight jacket. You'd think that a day at the arcades and a day of clothes shopping could fit into a 10-day trip, but there you go. At least that's the not quite an explanation I got out of them. Those friends are massively shit. Who gets someone's hopes up on the trip of a lifetime, and then excludes you last minute? Horribly childish. Glad you ended up getting to go. Anyway, maybe a blessing in disguise. Back in November I took in a friend whose BF kicked her out. She lived with me completely free of charge up until this month because she was unable to get a job. Well, at the start of the month she got a job finally, and of course we agreed she'd start paying the same rent and bills as everyone else in the house. That was all set and fine until she decided she wanted to get a tattoo with her first pay. I said that's fine, but make sure we have rent money first and tattoo afterwards. You would have thought I told her her first month's rent was the soul of her firstborn. She went apeshit, screaming about how I'm a horrid cunt who's never done anything for her and she shouldn't have to pay because it isn't fair because she wants to use her money for her things. She screamed and swore until my neighbors came over because they were worried. This all coming from the girl that I had given everything to. Food, clothes, a home. I shared my fucking bed with her for Christ's sake, but the second I told her she was expected to contribute to the house, I was suddenly the worst human being to ever take a breath. So she left last night after making that huge scene. Called me every name in the book and had her next victim pick her up. Poor guy. Soon enough she'll do the same thing to him. She's done this more times than I can count. She makes a sob story about getting kicked out of her last place, moves in, doesn't contribute and is generally a lazy slob until the person she's leeching off of wises up and kicks her out. Orders like I didn't, just simply said she'd need to pay rent and she'll book it to the next house where she can keep playing poor me. I thought it'd be different because we were such close friends, but number. I will be regretting letting her into my life for a very long time. Sorry for the novel. This just happened yesterday and I'm still so pissed off. I think we dated the same person. The only difference is, I moved in with her. Then I started paying her rent, the groceries, her late fees for the credit card. All because she was so deep in debt it was a miracle she was allowed to own anything. First time I refused her a 30 lottery ticket. She went nuts, yelling and screaming and cussing me out. Later she said she was just having a bad and stressful day and me being a selfish asshole just made her explode. It was close to an apology, and after half an hour of constant screaming, I took it. This turned into a 6-month battle that quickly escalated in threats and blackmail from her side to get me to pay everything for her. If I refused, she swore she'd either slam herself in 2 doors and call the cops on me, or tell and my friends, family and co-workers that I raped her. When I was tapped out and thousands in debt, she fucked someone else and kicked me out. I carried a grudge for the longest time. Pissed the fuck off at her and at myself. Kept harassing her to pay me back and she kept being a complete psychopath. Eventually, a friend asked me what's worth more to you, the money, or never having to deal with her again. I picked the latter. Never regretted it. Sure, she won by getting to keep it, but realistically, I never would have seen a dime and I'm cleansed off her poison. She has to deal with being herself every day for the rest of her life. She ruins every relationship she has. Can't keep a job. And after a while, her friends always find out that she's a manipulative bitch. Being her is way worse than being me. So I'm pretty happy. I hope you can find the same peace someday. There are two sure ways to lose a friend. One is to loan money to a friend and the other is to borrow money from a friend. Why don't you rhyme it a little? There are two sure ways to lose a friend. One is to borrow. The other is to lend. Pat Rothfuss. Best friend of 12 years decided 2 weeks before my wedding he didn't want to participate. He was my best man. Because on the wedding day, his GF, now cunt of a wife, had planned a non-refundable trip for them to take. Even on the day of our fitting, which I had planned a dinner for everyone as an early thanks, he came to get fitted and then blew us off for dinner because he had a party to go to instead. His girlfriend knew it was my wedding day, as she was invited as well. She never liked me. Feeling was mutual, so it never bothered me. So I cancelled their invite. Wedding day came. My brother-in-law stepped up and helped me that day. I'm still best friends with his brother, who he later gave an ultimatum to as well. Stay with his wife and kids and not have a brother, or leave her and they can still be brother's family. It was a no-brainer. I haven't seen him in 8 years. He hasn't seen him in 6. Similar thing happened to me. A girl pulled out of being my bridesmaid because her partner had organized a night away for them for her birthday, which was the day after, on the night of my wedding. And apparently it just couldn't be cancelled. Mind you, this was in May and my wedding was the following March. So I rolled with it and asked someone else. Best decision ever. Time comes for our SVPs and so I chase up with her. Turns out she's not sure whether she can come because her partner is away on site that weekend and they had to cancel their night away. Then she come back a few days later and says she will only come to the ceremony as her partner was able to rebook the night away. In the end they turn up to my ceremony in jeans and t-shirts. Seriously, he was wearing one of the artistic naked lady shirts and leave for their night away, which turned out to be a night at the pub with some of his mates. She then proceeded to unfriend me on Facebook a few months later. Seriously, WTF, right? Never mind that we had been friends for years. I spent so many nights with her while her ex-husband was on site and she needed company. Was there for her when her mum died, and the birth of her son. And then when the ex-husband walked out on her 2 months later. Nope, I guess asking someone to be your bridesmaid for a wedding that is the day before your birthday is going just a bit too far. My sister had a destination wedding and I was one of the bridesmaids. So after a year of planning and saving up money, we live in North America and her wedding was in South America. I was super stoked for this new chapter in her life and a fun vacation too. So leading up to the days of the wedding, my sister was okay to me, just the usual way she is to me. Day of the wedding, her husband had to come to me and tell me that she doesn't want me to be her bridesmaid. Then 2 days after, I got kicked out of her husband's parents' vacation home because they didn't want the situation to get worse between us. Of course her husband had to tell me that too. Not once has she spoken to me about it. Gave me no reasons whatsoever. Nothing. It's just funny because she's 7 years older than me and always claims how mature and cool she is. Yet she can't even talk to me and tell me what the hell happened. That is when you break ties with your sister and stop talking to her being around her. Oh yeah, after what she pulled off, never again. Wedding happened the 23rd of January, and she still hasn't said anything. Doubt that she ever will. With the details you've given, it sounds like your sister's husband is doing some manipulating. He may have told your sister that you came onto him or something else. I never trust a go-between. It's really difficult for me to say because when he talked to me about it, he was uncomfortable and he truly was sorry for what was going on. Also, he even said he doesn't understand why this happened. My brother talked to her when this was happening and he just said something along the lines of, "A lot of the stress and anxiety she is having is from you. She can tell the way her husband's family treats you and they treat her differently. My sister has mental issues and is very unstable and can be unwelcoming. I made a connection with her husband's family a while ago and to me they are family. All she does is complain about his family when they are literally the nicest and best family I have ever met in my life. So no wonder no one likes her. I guess she just got pissed off that the family is nicer to me lol, but that's a problem for being not a nice person. Dated my best friend for about 3 years. About a year and a half in, her mom passed away and she took it really hard. For several months, I was there for her every day helping her cope. It was difficult but we got through it together. A year later my dad died from a sudden heart attack. She broke up with me after 2 weeks because you're just not fun to be around anymore. Edit. My highest comment is about he lowest point in my life. Cool I guess. Damn dude, that's rough. Dated a girl for 3.5 years and helped her through being bipolar and trying to kill herself. She dumps me because I was going to school and basically couldn't afford to help her and do all the stuff she wanted to. Edit. I just want to say the breakup was not 100% her fault or solely because of her being bipolar. We had a ton of regular issues that were never addressed and everything just added up to be too much. I don't want anyone to think it was 100% the girlfriend's fault. Obviously it's never all one person's fault a breakup happens. Reminds me of what happened to an ex of mine. He had been dating this girl for a while when his grandfather died. She dumped him because he was in mourning. We start dating. He's a bit over emotional and cagey about letting himself trust someone, so he broke up with me twice. We get back together for a third time and things are going really well and steady finally. Then his ex apparently got jealous. She began to crush on him again and went to him saying that she wants him back. He can't decide and talks to me about it. I tell him he has to do what's best for him, but that I will absolutely never get back together again with him if he breaks up with me one more time. I can't allow myself to stay in that sort of relationship. He thinks about it, and decides he wants his ex and breaks up with me. He approached her to get back together and she said she wasn't interested any longer. He was wicked depressed and disappeared for a while. We've remained friends, though. It's been 17 years. We have crazy strong chemistry and have gotten too close a couple times. But he always backs off whenever it happens in order to keep the promise of not getting back together with me. He's a sweetheart. Troubled, but a sweetheart. I'm marrying someone else this year. I once stepped barefoot onto a pile of fish hooks that was sitting on one end of the dock. I don't know why the guy thought leaving them there was okay, but it definitely was not. My brother spent the next hour pulling hooks out of my foot. My boyfriend and I both have repeated lapses of depression. Most of the time is fine, but sometimes it gets really ugly. When he is trying to cheer me up, it's usually okay. But if he gets into a funk I can't pull him out of, I get really depressed and sometimes break down for multiple days because of the feeling of unrelenting guilt that I can't help him the way he helps me. As much as I love my boyfriend, my depression makes it really hard to be near him sometimes. This makes me think of my old roommates. They are absolutely perfect for each other, but both struggle with mental health issues. Primarily depression. It's pretty easy for them to spiral. He is upset and she doesn't feel like she can help, which makes her upset, which then makes him more upset because he realizes that his depression has made her upset and so on. Like you said, they are mostly okay. But sometimes a minor incident will cause a week of them being down. They basically never get mad at each other, but are sad at each other, which is almost worse. It's possible he just wasn't strong enough to bear your burdens along with his own. I've definitely had to step back from helping someone because I wasn't able to do it without getting bogged down myself. Cockasset. Hard to judge on a case-by-case basis. But I get what you're saying. Helping someone with depression, especially when they're depressed for extremely long periods of time, can be very draining. I'm so sorry, honey. I don't know who could be spreading those rumors. They're sick and they don't know you at all. Rumors had been spread that I, an awkward nerdy girl who'd never done more than hold hands, was not only sleeping with the whole school, male and female, but also that I was pregnant. Yay. News to me, right? My best friends swore they'd defend me, and when they found out who it was, they'd make them regret it. Then I went down to the lowest floor of the high school, foreshadowing much, and walked up behind my best friend and noticed she was talking about me, about what a slut I am, that she'd never be friends with me. The girl she was talking to started frantically signaling to cut off her convo, but guess what, too late. I switched schools halfway through that year and never looked back. Man, some people are sadistic. I don't get why they would get joy out of others suffering. And to be aware that people who do that are sick, and yet do it themselves? Sociopathic. These are people that eventually become the same conniving snakes in the workplace, causing toxic environments and office politics. So many people try to deny that this happens. It's refreshing to see people talking about this type of behavior. I've been the above board, blunt, I'm just here to work type of person my whole life. But the type that wants to create havoc for no reason has been a burden through most of my professional life. The less you participate, the more they single you out with this shit, it seems. Met a girl about 3 years back that quickly became one of my best friends. There were all the warning signs that she was a terrible person, but I ignored them. Everyone she'd been friends with before had apparently betrayed her. She was sleeping with an engaged guy, and somehow knew a ton of gossip other people in our social circle were apparently spreading about me. She was begin to theater, and about a year into knowing me was putting on a show for a local festival. She asked me to be her set designer, which I'd never done before. But it was an easy job and I figured why not, some of the actresses were cute. But the demands started getting bigger and bigger. Instead of just picking up tables and chairs, I had to build some kind of massive collapsible frame with imported fabric. The deadlines were tight and we fought bitterly. Whenever I protested, I wound up putting down $600 on all the materials. But the festival brought in that much money in cash very quickly once the show went up. I asked her for my money back and she said she was waiting on the check for online sales. So fast forward 3 weeks after the show and I still didn't have my money back. I called her a few times and her response was to tell every mutual friend we had that I was a sexist, abusive pig who was harassing her and threatening her. She implied that she wanted to sue me and get the police involved. So I called her bluff and said she should. She then wrote me a bad check and tried to accuse me of trying to cash it twice and kept threatening to sue me. So, being stereotypically Jewish, I got one of my parents' many lawyer friends to help draft a letter and said I'd be fine to go to a small claims court. At this point it was less about the money and more about hating this fucking bitch. About 2 months later she gave me $500 in cash and I decided to let it go. Some things I've learned since. 1. Every person she ever said betrayed her lent her money only to have her go scorched earth on them. 2. She made several $1000s on that play and didn't pay back any of the other people she owed, most of whom were just $20, $30, and $3. And surprisingly, she'd been bad-mouthing me to everyone even before this happened, setting me up as the kind of guy that would pull something like this. I've never gotten that close to someone again. She was the closest friend I've ever had, and in some ways I still miss that intimacy. I'm eternally grateful our relationship was purely platonic, as it could have been so much worse otherwise. For the record, her play was a steaming pile of shit and was reviewed by several small-time blogs as basically the worst thing ever. She's the only person I've met that I think I would truly not care if I heard she was dying slowly of cancer, but I genuinely want her life to be devoid of any real suffering, so the universe won't give her any justification for being such a massive cunt. TLDR. Bitch took my money. Theater kids be fucked. The saddest part of this for me is that now you're still scared of intimacy. Sorry mate. Hope you can let it go and get close to someone who's not a bitch. It's finally time for me to share this. I was 18 years old, 1 month away from graduating high school, and my mother was on her deathbed. She had Hep C and her liver that had been transplanted a couple years prior was failing. I had been driven up to the hospital 4 hours away after being taken out of school for the day. It was the phone call we had all prepared for. Your mother has taken a turn and we want you up here. My best friend at the time, a flamboyant gay boy, who we shall call Brian, drove my car up to the hospital per my father's and my request. This boy was very loved by my family. My mother wanted to throw him a birthday party after he said he'd never had one before. She bought him birthday cake, expensive cologne from her trip to Las Vegas, you name it. She treated him like a son, but only because I called him friend. He cooked dinner for us sometimes, and my mother trusted him enough to employ her at her bridal shop that she owned. So, he worked there as a cashier and general backroom guy, just like my dad. Well, my mother passed on about a week after I got up to see her. She could no longer speak. She was in a drug-induced coma, and I still have some minor triggers about the experience. The day she died, they were taking her off oxygen, and they asked each of us if we wanted to be with her. My father said yes and held her in his arms as she passed. I said no and waited in the next room. Brian said yes and watched my mother die. A month passed, and it was summer. I was at the bridal shop a lot because my dad couldn't quite handle it alone. Looking back, neither of us could handle it at all. And Brian knew that. We found out, thanks to a returning customer and a receipt they brought back. He had stolen upwards of $10,000 from my mother's business by using her screen name and password in our computer system. We brought the police in and everything, but the police said they couldn't prove it beyond reasonable doubt, so they had to drop the case cold. Everyone else knew he did it, and I did too, because that's when the razor blades and laundry detergent, cocaine, on his windowsill finally made sense. Brian stole tens of thousands of dollars from my mother after watching her die. Fuck you, Brian. Your life will be hell when you die and meet my mother again. Edit. YL. The support is amazing. You guys are amazing. I think all I ever wanted was for a bunch of people to hear this story and say, yeah, fuck that dude. I've held on to this story for almost 9 years now, and it's eaten me up. I feel a lot better about it now, and I want to thank you all for reading, commenting, and gilding this. The jokes are really helping, too. Thanks, you beautiful bastards. That last line makes it seem like your mom is in hell, or maybe she's in heaven and reaching down to make Brian's life miserable. Hey God, can I take a trip down to hell real quick? I'll only be a second. Is it about Brian? Yes. Take as long as you need. Growing up I was told that everyone goes to heaven. But once you get there you have a complete understanding of everything you did in your life. If you did something good but didn't realize the impact it had, now you do and it feels good. But if you did something awful that didn't bother you when you did it, now it doesn't. You have to live with that horrible guilt for all of eternity. Your own personal hell. When I was 13, my friend group and I traveled to the closest town with a large shopping mall, which was 2 hours from home. I had just moved to this state, but these girls were my only friends. Well, they waited for me to go into the changing room of one of the stores, then told the mom who took us there that everybody was ready to go home. They then left me in a town 2 hours away, in a shopping mall. My mom had to come get me. They then ostracized me 4 years after that. My mom spoke to the mom who drove. The bitch actually had the gall to say stuff like, "My girls would never do that yet." Well, they did. It really ruined my trust for making any friends for years. Got kicked out of my house and my best friend, we'll call him Carl, invited me to live with him and his girlfriend for the summer before I went back to college. Before I met anyone, he told me I was going to want to date his friend, Liz, then forbade me from dating Liz with no explanation other than she's basically my little sister. I then met Liz and really liked Liz. Carl then tried to set me up with his friend Amy and I got along okay. Went on a couple dates before I found out she was dating another guy on the side. Was no skin off my back, since it was a casual setup in the first place, and that gave me an opening to start seeing more of Liz. I started dating Liz and Carl got grouchy with me, telling me I wasn't good enough for her, and all sorts of overprotective macho nonsense. But we mostly just moved on until I moved out and went to school in another city. Liz visited me a couple times, and eventually Carl and Liz went to visit a friend of ours who lives nearish me. I was like, oh sweet, I'll come to and it'll be a big old friends reunion, and Carl tells me that's a no-go because a guy who lives with them hated me for no reason that was ever given. And apparently none of my other buddies would stand up for me. That hurt. But Liz said she would visit me after. So fine. That happens. Liz comes to visit, and she has a tale to tell. Turns out, Carl and his girlfriend had been having relationship issues, and I had been invited to live with them as a buffer. I moved out and things got worse. They were now on a break. The reason Carl forbade me from dating Liz was his backup girl and I was cock-blocking his prospective target. The reason my buddies didn't have my back, Carl told everyone I cheated on Amy, and Cole was using that trip to try and get in Liz's pants despite her and I dating. So, TLDR. Supposed best friend saves me from a jam. Not as a friend, but to use me as a pawn in a weird manipulation attempt that didn't work out in his favor but cost me a whole fringe rub. Still got the girl, though. Why is it such a common thing that she's basically my little sister often translates to you can't sleep with her because I want to? It's so creepy. I don't think I've ever heard of two people who refer to each other as basically siblings who didn't eventually end up hooking up. Is it denial? My brother hooked me about a half an inch below my left eye, then proceeded to tug because he thought he was stuck on a tree branch that hung over our fishing spot. Damn barbed hooks. I was in a geek rock band in college. We played around Chicago almost weekly. We also had a side job as a jazz band. We were pretty tight. We went to each other's weddings, hung out outside of gigs, etc. After several years of this friendship, I was going through a divorce. I kept gigging with them. One gig with the jazz group was rough. I wasn't there emotionally, I didn't miss a note, and had some pretty sweet solos. but I probably looked like I'd just been beaten and drugged. A few weeks later, I get a mass email saying, "Come to our next gig, with new bassist, Joe Schmo." I was devastated. Not one of them had said anything to me. No one had checked in. No one had cared enough to say, "You're going through a rough time. Maybe you want to take off for a bit." One of the guys is a fellow teacher nearby and I have to see him a few times a year. Breaks my heart again every time. Edit. Thanks for all the comments. No way I can answer them all. But I appreciate that my event resonated with so many, and thank you for the gold. A few short additions. There was no other straw leading up to this. We were happy and creatively awesome as a group. The lead singer had a slight Napoleon complex when it came to some things, but nothing crazy. We all gelled really well all the time. The worst part was that I felt like these were my best friends. Yes, I, too, saw School of Rock. I've done well with my life. I miss them often. As someone said below, you may have many girlfriends over your life, but you may only get one good band. The guitarist, closest one to me and fellow teacher, called me a few weeks later and admitted it was supposed to be his job to tell me. That conversation is a blur, though. I haven't said a word to him since. That was 7 years ago. That sucks, man. Really sucks being silently replaced like that. That happened to me in the first band I was in. We hadn't practiced in a while because the drummer was busy. Turns out that's just code for we got a new guitarist. This reminds me of my first band. I was unwittingly on the other side of this. Was invited to join a group because my friend was the vocalist and we jammed together often. Get to the first practice. Everyone seems to be gelling. We didn't sound half bad. Get to the end and the topic of the previous guitarist comes up. And they all look at each other awkwardly and decide that right then and there with my present was the best time to call the previous guitarist on speakerphone and let him know they were moving in a different direction. Felt bad for the guy. But then I didn't, because the new direction was basically their old direction. They were mostly metalheads but insisted they were going to play less heavy stuff. So after it got too metal-y for me, I backed out, as did the vocalist, and their old guitar player joined and they threw the drummer's girlfriend on vocals. I'd say I was just bitter when I say that their first gig was god-awful, but I was totally at peace with it, so they really were just terrible. Sorry bud, the gig is up. But actually that sounds really shitty. Hope you're doing better. Yeah man. Similar scenario. I lost my career. 10 years and over some bullshit the company pulled and decided to mark up my record so I was basically barred from the industry. Came close to suicide multiple times. Didn't do it because of my son. I reached out to my friends of over 20 years. Told them what was going on. They said oh, I had no idea. That was it. No one cared. So needless to say I am distancing myself from them. I don't need that kind of disappointment nor do I deserve it. Neither do you. Chin up bud. TLDR. Fucking bass players, man. One of my bands is a fairly successful cover band. We gig often and with a mostly static set list don't meet for practices very much due to conflicting schedules. When we could meet for practice and get everyone together it became a pretty big deal and fairly important that we made the time as productive as possible. Our bass player, however, insisted that these sessions were the best time for him to bring out his fretless bass to practice using it. He'd been doing this for a while and, when we had less important things to work on and no hard deadlines and generally met up more often, it wasn't a problem. But now we had songs that needed to be reworked or added in and tight deadlines before the next show, and given that he doesn't use the fretless bass at gigs, probably hadn't touched the thing since we last met for practice 6 months ago. He wasn't terrible at it, but his intonation was a bit wonky. The end result is that multiple times during a song I'd feel weird, look around, see everyone making a funny face, stop to check my tuning, which was spot on, and generally just slug my way through the practice, getting more and more irritated that we sound like slightly out of tune shit. I know the rest of the band is noticing the same thing. I can see it in their faces. So apparently it was up to me to address, so I bring it up with our bass player after practice and insist that he brings his gigging bass with him next time so we can rehearse with the same equipment we perform on to keep the practices as functional as possible. I made a point not to just say that he sucks at fretless, but that we're adding an additional variable that we don't have time to work around right now. I'm being super nice about it, not making a huge fuss or giving him attitude, but being very clear about the request. Sure, no big deal. Everyone else agrees that it'd be a good idea. Next practice he arrives and pulls the fretless bass out of the bag. I chuckle and say, "Ha, cool. But you're going to practice with your normal bass this time, right?" "Huh, no. This is the one I brought." We proceed to have yet another rehearsal where I'm constantly checking my own tuning because something always feels vaguely off, and of course I know it's the bass, but what the hell can we do about it now? Song by song I'm getting more and more irritated by how we sound and the fact that he straight up disregarded my note from last time in a way that seemed almost like a direct fuck you. I do what I want. I'm getting pretty angry, and the energy in the room is definitely starting to shift. For the non-musicians reading this who may not understand how naggingly annoying it is to play with someone slightly out of tune, imagine watching a video online that constantly stops to buffer. Every time you get 5 seconds without buffering you think it's done, but nope, more buffering. A few seconds of playback. Stop. Buffer. For 2 hours. Near the end of practice between songs I stop and bring it up again with the whole group there. Bass player is really defensive and clearly non-receptive to the note. I look to the rest of the band for confirmation and get nothing. They all suddenly get real non-confrontational, avoid eye contact, etc., and provide absolutely zero backup on something that I'd mentioned to a few of them one-on-one and got an agreement on. I call a few guys out specifically to ask if they've been noticing issues with intonation and get shrugs. You motherfuckers. This is almost exactly how my favorite band fell apart. I had an all-girl punk rock band in the early 2000s. I was the last one to join the band, but I played in several other bands with the drummer, who had invited me to join as their rhythm guitarist. The bassist and drummer had started the band together and had initially written all of the songs. Very early on I was annoyed with the bassist because A, she could just barely play bass, about all she could manage was slightly off-time root chords. B, she demanded that she be the lead singer on all of the songs that she had written the words to, and she was a terrible singer, like Courtney Love, but we're near and both off-key and off-time. Our drummer, who is an incredibly talented musician and still working as a professional musician to this day, had written all of the music, but at the time was not very fond of writing lyrics. She has an absolutely beautiful voice, but had just come off of touring with a ska band for 4 years, doing pretty much all of things singing. So she was happy to take a backseat in that department. At first I didn't mind our bassist's crappy playing singing because we were very punk rock and it seemed to fit the genre. However, as we got better as a band and I started writing songs, her inability to keep up with us technically became more and more apparent. Probably out of insecurity, she became more and more critical of how I was singing, playing, writing. I don't mind her having an opinion, but at this point I felt like she wasn't a real musician. She was just a sinister that really wanted to look cool playing in an all-girl punk band, and she was holding us back. Our drummer really liked her as a person though, and I think felt bad for her, so I mostly kept my mouth shut about it. I did, on the rare occasion, mention that her playing singing was a little off, but she would immediately burst into tears and the whole band would end up having to comfort her. Finally it all came to head when we recorded an album and we had to listen to our bassist singing these songs with no background accompaniment over and over and over again. I remember looking around the room at the audio engineers working for us, and they were visibly cringing. They would make little comments like, "Oh, maybe you should have your drummer or guitarist sing lead on this instead." Shortly after the album was done I pretty much drew a line in the sand and said, "It's her or me." They didn't pick her, but they didn't pick me either. We basically got in a big argument that ended in the band completely breaking up. Fucking bass players. WTF, I came here to say that same thing. Had a friend message me on AIM saying he's sorry my band broke up. I told him we didn't, and then he insisted. Went to the band chat and sure enough the drummer and bassist decided to use a joke side project band as an excuse to quit, and they never played any gigs with any bands ever again. I think the singer-songwriter still thinks I left his band. That's tough. Like the time Jack Black got kicked out his own band. Yeah, but then they got back together and broke off Satan's Horn in a rock-off. I helped a friend get a job at my work. This is someone I have known for close to 7 years. She came to my wedding even. It is a small work environment and everyone teases each other there. No exception. Until she went to HR after I called her a smartass, and filed a harassment complaint. I pleaded with her to talk to the manager, but she didn't want to get involved, and ended the conversation. I got fired following my suspension. Non-union job. This was over a month ago and to this day she is one of the few people from that job who hasn't checked in on me yet. Besides my job search frustration, I feel genuinely heartbroken. I learned my friends weren't actually my friends during an acid trip. I was already having a bad trip and they fucked me up even more by telling me things like how I would never be able to have a real relationship and that I'd fucked my brain up for life. Needless to say, I spent the next 20 hours trying to hold myself together while those thoughts kept racing through my mind. I'm still not me. My best friend and my husband. Married 7 years. Refinanced dream home in October. Booked bucket list vacation 2 weeks later. A week after that, he came home and told me we were getting a divorce. He then walked out the door and never looked back. No notice. No, honey, I am growing unhappy. We never fought and I thought we had an awesome life. But that wasn't the stabbed in the back part. Look, people grow unhappy and get divorced. Shit happens, right? Except that besides blindsiding and abandoning me and our child, he went around to all of our friends and family playing the victim of how he was unloved and unappreciated. He also neglected to mention in his tale of woe about his side piece. Would have taken a bullet for the man. Didn't know he was holding the gun. I hear that. 7 years, 2 beautiful daughters. She had an affair and charged me with assault overshadow what she did. Never laid a hand on her. Wish I was able to get over her. I have that feeling I will carry her ghost the rest of my adult life. I stabbed my friend in the back. One day in grade 7. I was sick so I stayed home from school. Since I wasn't deathly ill, I played RuneScape, a game my whole friend group was playing at the time. When I logged on I saw my friend Jordan online. Jordan and I were talking about how Dylan has the coolest items in RuneScape. Dylan's other friend was a member, so Dylan had good items. Jordan asks if I knew Dylan's password and I said no, but we're best friends so I can guess. I tried logging into his account and I got his password correct eventually. We took most of the important things from his account: money, items and armor. When Dylan logged on, he was very upset. He eventually found out what we did and he really didn't care that much after a while. However, I always have felt bad about it. Not because what I did was too horrible, but because he is the nicest guy and I betrayed him. Dylan and I are still best friends to this day. We are both teachers, and we hang out every Sunday and play chess. I hired a guy who was desperate for a job. He was older than me by about 15 years. One day he dressed up in a suit, around my back, went to my boss and convinced him to make me his subordinate. One thing led to another and I settled out. Got paid to not work for a year. Wow. Something similar happened to me, except it was just some dude I hired. I worked for a consulting company. We needed a graphic designer for a client I was the lead person on. The designer proceeded to take over the project. He started having private meetings with the client, making the client think he was now lead. I complained to my company. I was their employee, and this was just a contractor, and he was effectively stealing the client. They added a manager to the team, but it didn't stop anything. After every meeting with the manager, he'd come up to me and dictate tasks as if he were managing me, and he still was taking meetings with the client behind our backs. I kept telling the company this was really bad, but they ignored my warnings. They said the client liked him and that's really all that mattered. He started making promises and agreeing to deadlines without my approval and even with my explicit disapproval. It was rough because he was merely the designer and I was the one who actually had to do all the work. In particular, we argued over the scope of the work. I warned he was promising way more than what was physically possible to get done, but he swore up and down the scope was 1/10 of the size. I brought in the manager and the company owner and I told them this was a huge danger. They ignored me. The project was update the website. He swore it was a 10-page website. I demonstrated it was a 300-page website. He swore they were ditching those other pages. About a week before the deadline, the massive scope I had warned them about cracked wide open. We can't possibly get rid of those hundreds of pages. I was pissed and told my manager. She told the designer, and the designer walks over to me and laughs that the client is being silly. I said no. I knew the scope was vital to the client and you ignored me. I yelled the last words. I sat down and said, okay, clearly I can't talk about this right now because I'm yelling. And he said no. We have to talk about this right now. We haven't been working well together and this is an issue. I say no. I clearly am not able to talk calmly about this right now. So we need to address this later. He continues to pester me. I ask him to leave and he refused to leave. I tried to leave and he blocked my path. At this point the office manager was called in and I tell him to please escort the designer from my desk because he won't leave me alone. He tells him to leave. He doesn't. I am losing it. So I sit down and put on my headphones so I can try to prevent a total meltdown. The office manager left, and the designer still stood there talking for a while. He left my desk, and I find out he called the owner and told him I was being impossible and he packed up all his things and left. The owner comes in, pulls me into his office and screams at me for yelling at the designer, then fires me on the spot. Epilogue. I had been working with the client for over a year and they loved me and I loved them. I was close to the development team. One of their managers got pulled into the project. I knew she was flaky and was cautious about making sure the project actually ran in a direction the people paying money would actually approve. The designer got totally close with the flaky manager and worked with her to throw the development team under the bus. After I was fired, I wasn't there to keep the flaky manager in check. The development team rebelled against her and got her fired. My company lied about why I disappeared. Literally disappeared in the middle of talking to them and told them my grandmother was gravely ill and I had to take care of her. When they found out, they were lied to and I had been fired. They fired my company. The company couldn't handle the financial loss and shut down. Edit. Thank you all for making me feel validated. This was an extremely difficult thing for me to go through, and it's always been so hard to explain how emotionally taxing it was to be treated that way. I've been shaking still 4 hours reliving this, but in a good way, because I'm feeling to my core that I did the best I could with the cards I was dealt. I'm glad your company got shut down. I was getting fucking angry reading that story. Did you find a better employer? Not really. I promptly joined a co-op consulting company and the guy handling billing was a dick and wouldn't force clients to pay that weren't his. Took me 9 months to get half what I was owed. Next company was a startup that took advantage of me. Next I loved, but I got sick, shifted to another manager, and was fired for being too sick. Next I loved again, but was again fired for being too sick. I tried making my own company, but was too sick. Now I've given up and preparing to be a stay-at-home mom. My very soon-to-be husband. Drama twist. He's the office manager from my store, just got a great job he's super excited about. 2007. I had just finished chemotherapy and my then girlfriend and one of my best friends were hooking up behind my back. Needless to say, I don't speak to either of them anymore. I used to have 2 very good friends when I was 19 years old. We always hung out and smoked weed together. One day, the 2 of them teamed up on me and said, "We think you are only friends with us so you can smoke our weed. If you want to prove that you are really our friend, you should pay for all the weed we smoke for the next 2 months." Each of us, including me, had always fairly contributed to our purchases, so this was completely unwarranted. Also, it's completely ridiculous to ask your friend to prove his friendship by paying things for you. So yet I told them to fuck off and blocked them on all social media. Never saw them again. 2 years later, I met one of the 2 at a concert. He told me that he wasn't friends with the other guy anymore because he realized what a manipulative asshole that guy was. He explained to me that the guy had talked him into ganging up on me back then and I forgave him. So we became friends again. What if the other guy was the one who broke off the friendship because he realized concert friend was actually the manipulative one? Edit. Congrats Reddit. You got me to turn off the comment notifications on my phone based entirely on ARP's username checks out comments. Nah, I knew them both pretty well and there was also a bit more backstory as to why those 2 stopped being friends. So I knew it was true. But what if he made it all up to trick you and over an elaborate scheme taking place over 20 years he will steal your identity and all your wealth just to buy weed? My best mate of 30 years ripped me off for a few £100 symbols thinking I'd never know. I knew. Haven't talked in the 3 years since. My friend invited me out to a party in college freshman year. He went down to a friend's room and I told him I'd meet him, and as I walked up to the door I hear him saying, "Yeah, I invited my roommate but I really hope he doesn't come." 2nd grade I had this crazy abusive teacher who would sharpen pencils to throw them at students and smack us on the head with textbooks. One day after talking to my parents about this issue they told me to run to the principal's office next time this happened. About 2 weeks later she got crazy because one kid fell asleep in class. She started chunking pencils at us and one stuck me right in the shoulder. Wasn't deep but it stuck. So I ran to the principal. Long story short, they never believed me and she was able to keep her job. Worst part is the counselors would come down regularly and talk to us about this issue but didn't believe anybody in class since the teacher would suck up to them when they walked in. I did find out though that a couple years later one kid's father was a FBI agent and truly wanted to investigate and set up a camera inside the classroom to record some evidence. She ended up serving some jail time after he went straight to court. My god, what a wonderful ending. Completely infuriating, though, that the teacher was able to get away with so much. How long ago was this? That is particularly fucking evil. Acid tends to make most people really sweet and vulnerable. These people must have been born evil. Mine happened not too long ago. I get engaged in August and around October we decided our wedding date and notified all our friends and family. One of my best friends had been dating this girl for about 9 months or so, and in December he started talking about how he was about to propose to her, and I told him how cool it is and all that and reminded him of my wedding date, because his girlfriend at the time doesn't like my fiancé at all. Fast forward to Christmas Eve, he proposes, text a few of us and we congratulate him and continue on with our day and let him take in the moment without us asking him tons of questions. First day back to work we are chatting and I ask if they have an idea of the date. He does. And it is the exact same date and time as my wedding and they won't budge on the date. So now I'm down one groomsman and won't get to attend one of my best friend's wedding because his fiancé hates us for some reason and doesn't want to attend our wedding. Sorry if the formatting is weird, I'm on my phone. I would make a huge deal out of this by saying, oh, isn't it fantastic that we'll share the same wedding anniversary? My bet is it will drive your friend's fiancé crazy, and maybe you'll get lucky and they'll change the date. Kill her with kindness. Yes, do this exactly. Tag them on Facebook, tweet at them, tag them on Insta, snap them, wherever they are and whatever social media they are on. Make a huge deal about sharing the same wedding anniversary and maybe the bitch will let it go. 2 years ago I had a friend I had known since middle school move in with me and another roommate, who we have both known since high school. He was going through some rough times with his family and needed a place to stay. First year was fine. No issues at all. Then he started to avoid paying bills. He did pay rent though, and started eating my food and wouldn't acknowledge it in any way. I have no idea why, but I was heading home for the summer and figured it'd be fine. We started texting again and he seemed okay, but the other roommate was at the same time telling me that this guy had begun to eat his food, make messes all over the place, and still not pay bills. Mid-July this guy texts me saying he and other roommate almost get in a fight over the bills, so he would be moving out in 2 weeks. He said he'd pay rent for August to avoid screwing us over. I told him I appreciate that and when he moved back home we should hang out like old times. Other roommate tells me he moved out on the 31st of July, and I text him to see if he left a check up there for rent. I get an automated message saying his number is no longer able to receive texts. I call him and it says it's no longer in service. I check Facebook and he deleted his account. He blocked me on Twitter, and removed me on Xbox. Same with my other roommate, as well as other friends we all shared from back home. I've since been told he's reactivated his Facebook account, but I've been blocked. Haven't talked to or seen him since. The worst part is, if he didn't want to pay rent for August he could have just said so, and I wouldn't have complained. He left only owing me about $40 for the internet bill for 2 months, but he owes other roommate significantly more. Dude threw away 12 years of friendship with me, and 10 with other roommate, all for whatever reason. It sucks. My little sister literally stabbed my back with a pencil when we were young. Does that count? I got stabbed in the chest with a pencil by one of my good friends. We both got suspended. I was stabbed in the hand with a pen by a girl in my class. She showed me her boobs a couple years later. We were cool after that. I got stabbed in the hand with a pencil a few months before getting stabbed in the chest. 7th grade was not my favorite year. Stabbed in the chest, good friends, cute. Why exactly was your good friend stabbing you? Reminds me of some girl I knew in HS who stabbed her best friend with a syringe full of water because she wanted to see what would happen. Reminds me of some girl I knew in HS who stabbed her best friend with a syringe full of water because she wanted to see what would happen. Man. Teenagers do stupid shit, and I hope she realizes someday how lucky she is, because 9 times out of 10 that will do nothing. But it could literally kill someone. Had she accidentally killed her friend, she would have been fucked up forever. In middle school I know somebody that put a bunch of Germ-X in somebody's drink because he thought it would be funny. He got suspended and then had to give a speech to our entire grade, during lunch, with a microphone, about the dangers of ingesting Germ-X and how what he did was wrong. Well, she stabbed her in the abdomen. I guess it was still pretty lucky though. They were both fucked already though. Really shitty home life, heavy drugs. I was sort of friends with the girl who got stabbed. She was nice, but had a pee fetish that she was extremely open about. Very strange. We were in 7th grade. He's kind of crazy already, and I guess he was having a bad day. Anyways, he was sharpening a pencil at the pencil sharpener and was taking forever. I tapped his shoulder and asked when he'd be done. Without thinking, he turned around, stabbed me with a pencil, and when he realized who he stabbed, he realized he shouldn't have done what he did. I pulled the lead out of my chest. The substitute teacher freaked out, and we both got suspended. He got suspended for fucking stabbing somebody, and I got suspended for provoking the attack. 10 years later and there's still a gray spot on my chest. I'll see him from time to time and we still joke about it. So, yeah, he stabbed me, but it's fine. You got suspended for being stabbed because they assumed you must have deserved it. Yeah, I know. It's dumb as hell. But when you're young and naive, you'll believe a lot of what adults tell you. I walked out of that office feeling like I did something wrong. In retrospect, he was just an asshole and I didn't really do anything wrong. If somebody tried to tell me that now, I'd promptly tell them to fuck off. I got stabbed in the forehead by a mechanical pencil by my classmate in grade 2. Couple years later I found out that she liked me and did it to get attention. I just found out 2 of my closest friends have been catfishing me with pictures of an Israeli supermodel for the past couple weeks. So that was pretty cool of them. My husband found out one of his friends was dating a minor and was emotionally abusing her, threatening to kill himself if she left him. Very jealous, controlling. The works. Husband was not cool with this, and when he dug into it, he discovered that all the others in his friend group knew he was a shitlord, but just didn't care or, in some cases, actively hid it. Husband basically told them he wasn't down with them sitting by and letting this guy do this, and they all basically said, "Lol, you suck. We prefer the abusive shitlord." These were his closest friends from college, and they dropped him. A couple months later the shitlord draped his GF: "Sometimes it fucking sucks to be right about something." As far as we know, they all know he did this, but it seems they're still friends with him. Luckily the girl got away from him and is doing okay. Edited. grammar clarity. In college, I was involved with the theater department. I had never gotten over this one ex of mine. And one of my closest friends broke up with his GF to get with the girl right when she and I started talking again. He then wrote a play about it, set it in my apartment, got my roommate, another extremely close friend, to direct it, and performed it in front of the entire department. The play included my family's personal history, drug use, conversion to a different religion, and entire pages of conversation we'd had in real life thrown word for word onto the page. When I said how shitty the whole situation was, the vast majority of my friends essentially gaslit me and acted like I was being unreasonable. I was working as an id consultant, and was recently promoted to area manager, so I had maybe 15 other consultants under me. Now, I was personal friends with many of them before the promotion. Then 2009, the big global depression finally hit it in the country I worked in, and some of our jobs were cut after finished projects. Well, it was basically me and 2 other guys. Shortly after, shit talk to my managers about my work performance started surfacing. And it turns out, it was the major reason why I was cut. Lo and behold, who did it? Those who were supposed to be my friends. I could disprove everything via written performance reviews from the company's managers where we were stationed. But since I found out after the fact, it was too late. Costed me a year's unemployment and ending up in debt just to survive. Why? Because jealousy. Now, let's add some more fun facts. Some of those friends knew most of my friend circle, whom they started talking shit to. Out of those 10-ish people, one person questioned what they said and stayed friends with me. The rest cut me without even speaking to me. One friend tried playing both sides, but after I showed him the performance review from my managers, whom the shit talker said was unhappy with my performance, he still kept in touch with them. So I cut him from my now very small, but genuine, friend circle. These backstabbers were all people who also came to my wedding. Good riddance, I say. I know the major shit talker is now stuck in a job he hates, and I got the job of my dreams for a long time after, and ended up in a decent job but with the best pay ever. Hooked up with a girl. Didn't know one of my friends had interest, as I was in high school. The full bro rules of dating were a bit fuzzy. Went over to her place, my friends dropped by, figured shit had blown over. I walked to my friend's car as the plan, as I was told was to hit a restaurant. Nope. 3 of my friends tried to put me the trunk, as this was a late 70-olds. The trunk was pretty rough. In my attempt to fight my way out, I cut my arm on the trunk lift assembly, leaving about a 6-inch gash on forearm. Needless to say, there was copious amounts of blood. Got everywhere. This sort of scared them off. Or at least, I was able to get out of the trunk, and walk into the girl's house for bandaging. Wasn't deep enough for stitches. This became a pretty frequent dream about being literally stabbed in the back. One particularly intense dream caused me to rip a pretty long hole in my sheets, making me physically check to see if I was bleeding. Oh, and they were planning on driving me out to a reservoir, a good 20 miles away, to let me walk home. New Year's Eve a few years ago, at a local rock club, my girlfriend and I had been talking to a girl all night. We vaguely knew her. She was the roommate of the girlfriend of a friend of ours. It was pretty apparent from the start that she was into both of us, and it was mutual. Things started getting interesting, if you catch my drift. Just as we were suggesting we go back to our place, literally a 2-minute walk away, our friend and his girlfriend come over and insert themselves into the situation. They tell her in no uncertain terms that she shouldn't be going home with people, that she's drunk. We all were, but no one to the point of irrational decision making, and so on. She tells them she's fine, but they keep on, and eventually she decides it's not a good idea. Her first suggestion is actually that the three of us mess around in a bathroom stall, because that's less obvious and she'll get less shit for it. But have you seen rock club bathrooms, Dart? So, fair enough. It's good that she's got friends looking out for her. We were sad, but we understood, until we found out that when they got home, they tried to initiate a threesome. Haven't spoken to any of them since. My ex best friend of 5 years still my boyfriend. She's gorgeous and lively, very outgoing. I'm a more than slightly chubby redhead who plays video games and reads all day. We met through my BFF. He was tall and sort of decent looking, worked on a farm and seemed like a really good guy. I have a massive soft spot for farmers, so he and I hit it off and spent almost all of our free time together and were texting constantly when we weren't together. A few months later we get into an argument and he pretty much lays it out there. He had only been dating me so he could be close to my BFF. I was too fat for him, and he had been fucking her since pretty much right after we started dating. Called BFF. She confirmed his story, and said she was only doing it because she knew he would hurt me and wanted to make him like her so she could hurt him back. He was my first serious boyfriend in years, and I wouldn't even consider dating for nearly another year after that. Not to shit on anyone, but this doesn't really sound like she stole your boyfriend considering he was just using you the entire time. More like those two people are complete shit and deserve to be stung by wasps every 5 minutes. Me and my older brother were fishing one time. I turned my back to grab another worm right as my brother tried to cast a line. Took a hook in the back. I'll never forgive that bastard. Edit. We found out all brothers are terrible with fishing rods and should also avoid skipping stones. My best friend and I were fishing and he cast his line and hooked his own back. I was confused as to why he was yelling and reaching for his back. Then I realized what happened. You brilliant idiot. Hooks are for fishes. Did the whole project myself while my partner wouldn't even do stuff in class while the teacher was talking. Basically the class was an introduction to coding and C. Half the classes were done in front of a PC. Due to some misunderstandings and some issues we weren't able to really work together, so I did most of the work and even most of the report. I sent him a copy and told him to study it. Day of the presentation and we both go to our teacher's office. We make a deal so he talks about the first project, the simple one, and I defend the second one. Once inside, the teacher asks him about the second project. Okay, but he should still be able to know something. Turns out he can't answer the first question, which is based on the basics of what we were learning in C and not something specific about the code I made. I kind of tried to get involved but ended up not saying a word because the teacher didn't let me. After that the backstabbing starts, where I'm basically blamed for doing too much of the work without letting him join. Ignoring the fact that this was a simple question from class. Thankfully the teacher took my side the whole way and everything turned in my favor. I never got a chance to defend the first project but I still exchanged some words with the teacher about it afterwards. In the end I passed that particular class. He didn't. I'm probably too harsh regarding how much each side did but I remember that project defense pretty well. I once worked in a call center. The work was tough. Maybe a 9-month average burnout time. And at 2 years and I was one of the old hands. After a large recruitment drive there were a lot of new staff, none of whom knew very many people. and my idea was to, instead of us regulars going out to the pub on our own, as usual, we did it nearly every night. We invite some of the new starts along as well and make a night of it. It snowballed from there. One lady sketched and photocopied a quick poster with a date, time, and venue. One of the guys sent a group email. Another handed out photocopied invitations. Another booked a large table at our favorite bar. I got a box of celebration sweets. The build-up was invigorating. Everybody said they were up for it and looking forward to it. Bear in mind, we always went out for drinks anyway. The only difference with this night was that we were planning in advance and inviting others. Come the night, I went along early with the box of celebrations. Sat at our table, and no bastard showed up. I said, for the first solid hour on a busy weekend night I sat there alone at this table, reserving it for my workmates, as the pub slowly filled, and with more and more people asking if they could sit at this big, vacant table. It got mighty embarrassing very quickly to have to explain to them that I was waiting for a crowd to arrive, and for a long time to pass without any crowd doing any such thing. Eventually I gave up and started making it obvious that the table was available. I got some humiliatingly sympathetic looks from the people who took a seat. I was finishing my drink when a couple of new starts showed up well over an hour after the start of the night, and while I was talking to them explaining that the night was a total dud, a couple of the regulars deigned to stroll in. We had a couple of beers, but after being shown up I wasn't in the mood to make a night of it. I left the chocolates and split, having learned a valuable lesson. You can't absolutely count on people doing what they say they're going to, even if the thing is totally routine. The psychology of it was such that if we hadn't arranged anything, the table would have been filled with co-workers who would have been out as normal, as we always did. But make it an occasion, and suddenly no one wants to be the first to turn up, and not so many people want to go at all. The worst part of it was, because it was my initial suggestion and I was the guy left to hang out to dry, I got remembered as the face of the failed night out, and fellow co-workers had the nerve to rib me about it over the next couple of weeks, even though it wasn't guys like me that were the problem. And the following week, on the same day of the week, without any planning whatsoever, a big group of us hit that bar, got plastered, and had a good time, with only me seemingly spotting what was wrong with that picture, left on the spot by people I had known for years. 0-10, would not do again. I picked up the rocket launcher and my friend thought he should have it more, so he meleeed me in the back and took it, then proceeded to miss all his shots. That's when you melee him in the back, and start an impromptu deathmatch for 30 minutes in the middle of your legendary campaign, until truce is called and you continue the campaign for another 30 minutes until the same thing happens again. Well, this topic hits home. I had a group of really good friends in my teens and early 20s, and one friend in the group was my absolute best friend. We did everything together. Well, one day he was off at college, away from home. His girlfriend used to hang out with all the guys in our group, so we were all really close. And one day she confided in me that her boyfriend, my best friend, has been cheating on her at college with several different girls. I was kind of disgusted at him and really didn't know how to feel after that. It wasn't like him at all. She was thinking of breaking up with him and asked me what she should do. I hated being put on the spot, but I told her to go with her gut and either confront him and talk about it and get through it or break up with him. The very next day my friend contacted and we got into a heated argument about what a horrible friend I am. Made me think the whole thing was set up as a test to see what I would say. He accused me of coming on to his girlfriend, which I certainly did not do at all. And that day our friendship ended. Not only that, He basically told everyone in our friend circle not to talk to me ever again, and so I was left friendless because of either his shitty test of friendship, or his genuine stupidity of cheating on his girlfriend and her stupidity of reporting to him that I was coming onto her. Either way, I did nothing wrong and was basically stabbed in the back. This all led to a few years of depression and eventually acceptance that I'll never have another close friend ever again. My ex-girlfriend used my poor mental health and a failed suicide attempt to convince our friends that I was a compulsive liar. At the time I was taking some personal time to recover, away from people, and didn't realize what was happening until I tried to reintegrate myself with my friends, who by then were convinced I was a liar and a conniving piece of shit. For a little while I was very alone at a very vulnerable time. Since then has kinda given me perspective about who my real friends really are. The people who cared about me supported me regardless of what had been said about me, and were willing to hear my side of the story. The people who didn't were probably never really there for me in the first place. Important life lesson for me, I think. Kinda hurts me thinking about it, but I think I'm far better off now surrounded by people who I know really care about me. So after my high school GF and I broke up, it was a nasty situation. She cheated on me as I laid in bed with pneumonia. But anyways, I accepted it, but she continued to harass me in various ways. The last time she did it, she went onto my Facebook, because I never changed my password when her and I set it up. Because why would I? She decided to blast me on my own Facebook about how shitty of a person I was, and that dug a rather thorn into my side. And the next day when I decided to confront her about it, one of my closest friends sided with her, saying it was my fault for being that stupid. My rage went to sadness because my friend of almost 10 years just couldn't support me. Edit. Here's the thing. We broke up in November and she didn't do this until March of the next year. So the reason I never thought to change my password was because it was 6 months later and everything died down. Wait. So they said it was your fault because you knew she knew your password and didn't change it. That sounds more like friendly joking because it's technically correct. Unless they were actually telling her she was right, cause she sounds like a bitch. 7th grade. Myself and my small group of friends were of the less popular crowd, but we had each other. One day my closest friend of the group, call him Adam, doesn't hang out with us at break. No problem. It's not like he has to every day. Adam and I were super close. The kind of sleep over twice a week and do nothing but play Halo 3 in his room the whole day close. Over the course of a week he starts hanging out with us less and less. I asked him why and he tells me he's playing hand tennis with some other crowd, a much cooler crow. Then he goes on to explain some BS about how it's just so he can join their soapbox derby team. Soapbox derby comes and goes. Still not a word from Adam. I spot him after school one day and confront him. Asked him why he's avoiding us. He can't look me in the eyes and is visibly embarrassed to be seen with me. I just want an explanation. Got nothing. Went our separate ways from there. Needless to say, his newfound friends led him down a path of poor choices. Myself and my other friends are all doing well for ourselves. But what I'd give to go back and play Halo 3 with him again. Greatest memories. Too bad it ended poorly. I helped my friend get a summer job, her first job, when we were 17. It was at a place that I had worked the summer before and worked very hard at, got a bonus, and was put in charge when the owner wasn't around. There was no manager. When my friend started working there, she would tell my boss personal things I had confided in her. She also got mad at me for something involving a guy and started taking it out on me at work. She would refuse to do what I asked of her and rallied our co-workers to take sides. It was ridiculous and petty. Then, she convinced my childhood friends that I had abused her at work and stolen her boyfriend, who I had no interest in and met once. Friends left to be her friend. Jokes on them because I have great friends now and the most amazing best friend, my boyfriend. They still gossip about shit that happened back in high school and just act like children in general. On the occasions that I do run into them, they ask what I have been up to and mock the successes I have had and the happiness I have found. They are too jealous to be happy for me, even after all these years. Bullets dodged. Well, my best friend invited my boyfriend and I to see a movie with her and her husband. I had work to attend to, so the three of them went to the show without me. That's all well and good till my boyfriend came home hours after the movie ended and admitted to screwing my friend in a park. No idea where her husband was. I don't talk to any of them anymore. Best friend of 16 years. We both fucked up and made out after confessing we both had feelings for each other. She then understandably felt guilty because she was still dating my friend and him acting like a dick for the past few weeks was no excuse for what we did. However, then to save face she decided to spread rumors that I raped her, that it was all my fault. I would have been happy to take my share of the blame for what happened, but when I found out about that, it's amazing how quickly you can lose respect for someone. After that, the entire friendship group turned on me and I had to cut all ties with them. Been friendless and alone for a long time after that, and needless to say I don't think I'll ever trust someone like that again. I started dating this girl that was new to my school and we were doing amazing even after the whole lovey-dovey scene of it. It was our 9-month day and I was a bit excited because she always dreamed of traveling and just ignoring the world for a day, so I got in my car and picked her up. She then says to me that she was talking to my best mate and he was saying that I was going out with a bunch of different people that are friends of mine, which she knew I went out with, and said I pretty much cheated on her non-stop. Needless to say, she didn't want to hear what I had to say and then broke up with me. Married my ex about a year after we broke up. He was the one I called when we broke up to get away and confided in him. Edit. Since I worded it a bit funny, I dated a girl for about a year, and she broke up with me. I called my best friend of over 15 years to let him know, since it was obviously hard to deal with, and he came and picked me up and we had some drinks and he helped me deal with the breakup. Fast forward about a year later and I noticed that he was at my university, but he hadn't been calling me to hang out. He had been hanging out with her secretly behind my back and they later got married. They both unfriended me from Facebook and I haven't spoken to them since. The part that I'm the most sad about is losing my once best friend. I wish he had come to me about it and we could have chatted about it. I like to think that I'd have been okay with it. I miss him and hanging out like we used to. My best friend has dated 2 of my exes. They are my exes for a reason. And if they are happy together, then who am I to judge? Having said that, I told the first one, I was here before you, and I'll be here long after you're gone. I was right. I guess it would depend on who did the breaking up. If it was you, I can see you not caring. It would be hard to have a friend do that if you had been broken up with and had lingering feelings for the ex. It wasn't me either time. There was only lingering feelings for one of them. The first girl was fucking crazy. I'm pretty sure she's a sociopath. I warned him about her, and that she'd fuck with his head, but he was thinking with his dick and went for her anyways. He lasted longer with her than anybody else, but in the end he admitted that she was too crazy and it was time to let her go. Fun fact, we both lost our virginities to this girl. The second girl was pretty nice. and really enjoyable to be around. Usually, I was kind of jealous for a while, but I'm glad they were happy together. Eventually they broke up and he moved on. We've been best friends since kindergarten and I support his decisions. If he wants my sloppy seconds, that's his choice. Whatever floats his boat. It's not my place to get in the way of what he wants in life. After 17 years, he's more of a brother than a friend. Ex-girlfriends are irrelevant in comparison. As long as he's happy, he's got my support. In case anyone was wondering, the Ides of March Wikipedia webpage is the day on which Julius Caesar was assassinated. This question was inspired by yesterday's question about Pi Day Reddit webpage, and I really hope this turns into another AskReddit trend where we get at least one good history-inspired question per day. He stole my Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I had a binder full of all my good cards and he took it. Haven't seen him since. I was playing Risk and a bit into the game me and my friend kinda teamed up with me to take out someone else. After a while it was my friends again and he redeemed his cards to place 20-something troops on our border. He had Europe and some of Asia. I had Africa and South America and attacked me. He kicked my ass. I hope you don't hold it against him. Risk alliances are supposed to end in betrayal. I'm sure this will get buried, and I'm kind of okay with that. My best friend growing up was a terrible person. At the time I couldn't see it, but she really was a completely shitty human being. She had a very creepy cousin who would make sexual advances and comments towards me and made me feel very uncomfortable. She knew this, and knew I really did not like him. Mind you, this is when she and I were both 16, and he was 18. One day we were getting high at her then boyfriend's house and her cousin came over to buy some weed, coke, oxy, God knows what. My best friend was a little hosty, and decided this was a great time to go off and fuck her boyfriend. She left me alone in a strange house with her creepy cousin. This was before cell phones or anything like that, and I tried to zone out on the TV and keep to myself, as far away from him as possible. He kept making comments, and would sit closer and closer to me on the couch. I was very high, I know, not the smartest thing, and petrified, and he finally started touching me. I grabbed his hand and said if he touched me again I'd fucking kill him. He laughed and said he wasn't worried because he was much stronger than me. I was about a sickly 90 pounds at that time. Needless to say, her cousin sexually assaulted me. I stopped talking to her immediately and cut off all contact with her, our mutual friends, her family, etc. For months to years after, her cousin would find me on social media and stalk me. The sickest part was he'd write things to me professing love and sweet feelings. It got to the point where I told people if I ever went missing, look at him first. I ended up talking to her randomly years later, and told her what happened. Her reply was, well, you were super drugged up, so who knows what actually happened. Maybe you wanted it. Fuck her. My cat once scratched me on my arm so deep it left a permanent scar that is still clearly visible years later. Edit. To be fair, I was being annoying after trying to love him. I don't blame him. I was on the floor of the Senate after years of successful military campaigns, expanding the size and strength of my republic, and instituting mass reform for my people. Unfortunately, the upper-class senators weren't too down with that, and unfortunately, the senators whom I had worked closely with for such a long time stabbed me 23 times at the base of the Curia of Pompey. It was high school, of course, and I was doing pretty well as far as socializing goes. I had never been in that position. I saw this one girl who was completely alone, so I kinda adopted her. I pulled her into my friend group and she flourished. Over the next 2 years, I helped her battle through depression, an eating disorder, family issues, anxiety, name it. Whatever it was, I was there for her. Hell, I even volunteered to be her first lesbian kiss since she just wanted to get it out of the way. Senior year, things changed. She cut off all her hair and became a cool kid. By this point, I was generally a loner who drifted between groups. I still had really close friends, duet across different cliques. She pretty much upgraded to the cool kids and completely abandoned me. After everything I did for her, she couldn't even bother to talk to me. I still hurt thinking about it. Julia, or Jay now, I guess. If you're reading this, I loved you a lot. I hope you realize you threw away someone who would have done anything for you. For what? Some more signatures in your yearbook? Fuck off. The thing about best friends is that you could be someone's best friend but they don't have to be yours. The moment I realized I don't understand my own gender, my friend said she wanted to throw me a birthday party at her cabin for my 16th. I was stoked. As I was getting ready for my mum to drive me over, I get a call from her saying, "Hey, I'm so sorry but my parents told me they aren't cool with it after all." I thought it was pretty shitty of her to cancel last minute, but hey, parents are going to be parents. I called a few other friends to let them know what happened and see if they wanted to come to my place for a movie instead. "What do you mean it got cancelled? We're there right now," said the first person I called. I ended up alone on my birthday because nobody could get a ride to my place. The worst part in all of this, my friends still hung out with this chick afterwards. High school age is a bad age. People will be cunts and others will accept it because they want to fit in. What you have described is unisex. I've had guys doing similar cunty things to myself. High school should be looked at as a learning experience only, really. The people who make it out with loads of friends and nice group tend to be the most immature. Later in life they will get burned much worse than you had it. They haven't learned and will trust the assholes they hang out with. My best man ran off with my wife 6 weeks after the wedding. All after I had asked him to hang out with her, some because law school was taking up the majority of my time and she was lonely while she was finishing up her last semester of her masters before coming to live with me. You know, I can honestly say I've never had a friend stab me in the back. I've been pretty fortunate in that camp. I've never had a friend who dated my ex, or lie and say that they had plans to avoid hanging out with me. I've never had a friend who really slighted me in any major way. That's one of the benefits of never having a friend. Best friend from primary school, so around 18 years we were friends for. Went and shacked up with my ex-BF, which was messy because he dumped on the phone after 2 years together. Proceeded to pretty much stalk me at my work and wouldn't get the hint that I didn't want to get back together. Worst part is that she lied by omission in that she was with him for about 6 months before she told me. But hey, shit attracts shit. Playing Mario Party 2, aka the best one. My buddy had enough coins to steal a star. Stole from me even though I didn't steal one from him, and we had a non-aggression pact. My worldview changed that day. When I came out of the closet, girl, it didn't go well with my Catholic parents. I was devastated. I had already gone through an entire self-hatred process where I had to accept my homosexuality and align it with my religious beliefs. I had just accepted myself, but then having things blow up with my parents destabilized me again, and I had to start the cycle of hatred and acceptance all over again. Through that I had a close friend in school. We spent a lot of time together, carpooled together, etc. She was a rock for me throughout that tough time. A couple months later, she wanted nothing to do with me. avoided me, came up with excuses to not carpool, etc. Then a friend told me they overheard her telling our classmates that I hit on her all the time. And it's so awkward and pathetic. She was a married straight woman. And just a close friend. Go fuck yourself. It took me a while to figure out that it was just her major character flaw that caused her to act that way, and that my other female friends wouldn't do the same to me. Things are better now. I'm also successful in my field and she's not. So there's that too. When I was 15 I fell for a guy who was 19. He also happened to be my dad's ex-GF's son. I'd like to point out that his mum and my dad had been separated for years. He was living with my dad at the time for reasons I can't remember. Anyway, me and this guy had a relationship. My best friend and I had a stupid falling out over me not disobeying my mum. I was grounded. BFF wanted me to go out. I said number anyway. Because of this she decided to tell the entire school that I was sleeping with my brother. What she didn't know was that he was raping me. For years I would have abused shouted at me. I couldn't make any new friends because they all knew people she knew and it was spread around the entire town. It's been nearly 15 years and I'm still a little scared. As a 19-year-old, oh my goodness, that age difference makes me so uncomfortable. There's such a power deficit in that relationship. I'm sorry that happened. My best friend stole the love of my life. Turned all of my friends against me. It was a very dark time in my life. What about that guy that paid dinner to 12 of his closest friends and one of them ratted him to the Roman Empire for a bag of coins? And he even paid dinner. It's all fun. Games and miracles until someone shows you the bling bling. Boyfriend of 3 years and I were thinking about opening things up. Straight best friend of 6 years turned out to be not so straight. Started fooling around with him. He wasn't sure if he wanted to continue because he wanted to make sure my boyfriend and I were okay with it and didn't want to do anything to mess up what we had. Things got more serious after a few months, so we decided to try to figure out a poly relationship. A couple months after that my boyfriend broke up with me. Broke up with my best friend while they continued fucking. And almost 2 years later they're still together. To be fair, in retrospect my ex and I were already heading down that road. And I've realized monogamy is definitely for me. But I've never felt such betrayal. Happy Wednesday.